You paid off your car early. You never carry a credit card balance. You've got 6 months of expenses sitting in savings. On paper, you're doing everything right. So why does it feel like you're not actually getting anywhere? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of the financial habits that make you feel the most responsible are quietly the ones keeping you broke. Not because they're bad habits, because they're incomplete ones. They optimize for feeling safe instead of building wealth. Today I'm walking through 5 of these mistakes. Each one looks smart. Each one gets recommended by well-meaning people. And each one has a hidden cost that almost nobody talks about. Let's get into it. Before we start, quick disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't personalized advice. This is general education based on how money actually works, so you can make better decisions for your own situation. All right, mistake number 1, paying off low-interest debt like it's a race. If you've got a mortgage at 3%, a car loan at 4%, or federal student loans in that same range, and you're throwing every spare dollar at wiping that balance out early, I want you to pause on this one. It feels amazing to be debt-free. There's a psychological weight that lifts. I get it. But here's the math nobody puts on a whiteboard for you. If your debt costs you 3 to 4% a year, and the stock market has historically returned closer to 8 to 10% a year on average, every extra dollar you send to that low-interest debt is a dollar that didn't get invested. And the difference compounds for decades. Let's make it concrete. Say you have $10,000 in extra cash. You use it to pay down a 3% mortgage early. You save roughly 3% a year on that money, guaranteed. Or you invest it instead. Historically, over a 20 or 30-year window, that money could have grown at something closer to 7 to 10% a year. Over 25 years, that $10,000 sitting in the market instead of paying down cheap debt could be the difference between roughly $20,000 and $80,000 or more. That's not a rounding error. That's a house. That's retiring years earlier. This doesn't mean debt is good, and it doesn't mean high-interest debt. Credit cards, personal loans, anything north of 7 or 8% should ever be left alone. Kill that debt as fast as possible, no argument. But cheap fixed-rate debt on an appreciating asset? That's not the enemy. Treating it like the enemy is the mistake. Mistake number 2, hoarding cash to feel safe. An emergency fund is smart. 3 to 6 months of expenses in something liquid, yes, absolutely, do that. That's not the mistake. The mistake is when emergency fund quietly turns into $20, $30, $40,000 just sitting in a checking account, earning basically nothing, because moving it anywhere else feels risky. Cash feels safe, but cash isn't actually safe, it's just slow-motion risk. Inflation has averaged somewhere around 3% a year over time. If your money is sitting in an account paying you close to zero, you are losing purchasing power every single year. Quietly, invisibly. You don't see it happen. You just notice one day that the same amount of money buys less than it used to. Here's the fix, and it's genuinely simple. Keep your true emergency fund, the 3 to 6 months, but keep it in a high-yield savings account, not a checking account. That alone can be the difference between earning next to nothing and earning 4 to 5% a year on money you were never touching anyway. And anything beyond that emergency cushion? Cash sitting there just in case for years is a decision, whether you realize it or not. And usually it's the most expensive decision on this list because it happens silently year after year, and you never see the bill. Mistake number 3, buying things for the tax write-off. This one shows up constantly with small business owners and self-employed folks, but honestly, everyone's heard some version of it. Buy the truck, it's a write-off. Get the new laptop before year-end, it's a write-off. Here's what a write-off actually does. It reduces your taxable income, not your tax bill dollar for dollar. If you're in a 24% tax bracket and you spend $1,000 on something deductible, you save roughly $240 in taxes. You still spent the other $760 out of your pocket. For real. A write-off makes a purchase cheaper. It does not make a purchase free, and it definitely doesn't make a bad purchase a good one. If you didn't need the thing, the tax deduction just means you lost less money than you would have otherwise. You didn't gain money. The smart move isn't avoid all deductions. Deductions are great when they're for things you were already going to buy or things that genuinely grow your income. The mistake is reverse engineering purchases you don't need just to chase a discount that's smaller than people think it is. Mistake number 4, refusing to ever use debt or leverage. This is the flip side of mistake number 1, and it usually comes from a good place. Maybe you grew up watching someone struggle with debt, so your rule became never borrow money, ever, for anything. Paying cash for a car feels responsible. Saving up in full before buying a home feels responsible. And sometimes it is the right call. But used deliberately, debt is a tool, not a trap. It's the reason people can buy a house with 10 or 20% down instead of needing the full price in cash, and let the other 80 or 90% of that asset start working for them immediately instead of waiting a decade to save up for it. The people who build wealth fastest generally aren't the people who avoid leverage entirely. They're the people who understand the difference between good debt, low interest, used to acquire something that appreciates or generates income, and bad debt, high interest, used to buy things that lose value the moment you own them. Refusing to ever use debt doesn't make you financially disciplined. Sometimes it just means you're paying full price, in cash, for everything, while everyone else lets the bank's money do some of the heavy lifting. Mistake number 5, trying to beat the market instead of joining it. Last one, and this is probably the most common mistake among people who actually care about their money, which is a little ironic. Picking individual stocks, trying to time when to get in and out of the market, chasing whatever's trending. It feels smart. It feels like you're being active about your money instead of passive. There's a version of this that gets glamorized everywhere online. But the data on this is about as clear as data gets in finance. The vast majority of professional fund managers, people who do this full time, with research teams and infinitely more information than any of us, fail to beat a simple low-cost index fund over the long run. Not most years, most of them, most of the time, over long periods. If people whose entire job is beating the market usually can't do it consistently, the odds aren't exactly in your favor either. Doing it part-time, based on a headline or a tip from a friend. This doesn't mean investing has to be exciting or complicated to work. A boring, low-cost, diversified index fund contributed to consistently over years. That is one of the most reliable wealth-building tools that exists. It's not thrilling. Nobody's making a movie about it. But it works, and it works for almost everyone who sticks with it. The mistake isn't investing. It's confusing activity with progress. Swapping a proven, boring strategy for a more exciting one that statistically works against you. So let's bring it together. 5 things that look smart on the surface. Racing to pay off cheap debt instead of investing the difference. Hoarding cash to feel safe while inflation quietly eats it. Buying things just for the tax write-off. Refusing to ever use debt as a tool, and trying to beat the market instead of just joining it. None of these make you irresponsible. Most of them come from good instincts, caution, discipline, wanting to feel in control of your money. But good instincts without the full picture can still leave you further behind than you realize. If you caught yourself nodding at 1 or 2 of these, you're not alone and you're not behind. You're just missing a piece of information most people never get taught. That's exactly what this channel is for. And if this helped, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments which one of these 5 hit closest to home for you. I read everyone. See you in the next video.